I was fired in under 5 minutes. And it was not for stealing money or breaking a system. It was for pouring the wrong coffee. My phone started buzzing just after 3 in the afternoon. One call, then another. Then 3 more stacked on top of each other. Unknown numbers, a familiar extension. I let them ring. I was sitting at my kitchen table, hands wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug, watching the screen light up again and again. I already knew what those calls meant. They just did not know it yet. My name is Arya. Until that morning, I worked at a mid-sized logistics firm in Chicago, the kind of company that bragged about efficiency while quietly leaning on the same few people to keep everything running. Just hours earlier, I had been sitting in a conference room across from Ethan Caldwell, the CEO's son. He did not waste time. "Your behavior is unacceptable," he said, folding his arms like he was practicing authority in front of a mirror. "You used regular office coffee for a VIP client." I blinked once. The machine was empty. I refilled it. "That coffee is reserved," he said, "for people who matter." HR slid a termination form toward me. Ethan tapped the paper with his finger. "This reflects poorly on the company. We are letting you go, effective immediately." I did not argue. I did not explain that the client had laughed and said it tasted fine. I did not remind them that I had worked there for years without a single warning. I signed where they told me to sign. As I stood, Ethan added, almost casually, "We were looking for a reason." I carried my mug with me as I walked out. No one stopped me. No one spoke. The coffee was still warm. Back in my kitchen, the phone kept ringing, messages stacked up. I took a slow sip and stared at the screen, letting the silence stretch. They were just beginning to understand what walking away actually meant. Author's note: the story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at RevengeAITA. While the characters, companies, and events are imagined, the emotions and conflicts reflect real workplace dynamics many people recognize. Each story we tell carries a different message, shaped to explore power, accountability, and quiet forms of justice through narrative. Ethan Caldwell did not invite me to sit. He stayed standing, hands resting on the back of the chair across from me, like he was already rehearsing how this would end. "Your behavior is unacceptable," he said. He spoke slowly, each word clipped, practiced. "We have standards here, professional standards." I looked at him, waiting for something that made sense. "You poured regular office coffee for a VIP client," he continued. "That reflects a lack of judgment." "I refilled the machine," I said. "The client was already there." "That is not the point," Ethan replied. His voice sharpened. "The point is perception." Linda from Human Resources cleared her throat. She slid a thin folder across the table without meeting my eyes. "We documented the incident," she said quietly. "There are protocols." "Protocols," Ethan echoed, nodding. "People need to understand their place." I felt heat rise in my chest, but I kept my voice even. "I have never had a warning. Not once." "That is true," Linda said. "Your performance reviews have been consistently strong." Ethan turned to her, irritation flashing across his face. "This is not about performance. This is about culture." He looked back at me. "You don't get to decide what is acceptable here." I thought about the late nights, the emergency calls, the systems I kept alive while everyone else slept. I said none of it. Linda pushed the termination form closer. "Effective immediately," she said. "You will receive your final paycheck in the next pay cycle." I picked up the pen. My hand was steady. Ethan leaned forward. "For what it's worth, Arya, this didn't have to be complicated." I signed my name. As I stood, he added, almost as an afterthought, "We were looking for a reason." The words landed harder than the accusation. Coffee was just the excuse. Authority was the point. Linda gathered the papers. "Security will walk you out." "That won't be necessary," I said. I picked up my mug, still half full, and turned toward the door. No one tried to stop me. I packed my desk without asking for a box. No one offered one anyway. My keyboard sat where I left it, still plugged in. The monitor blinked with a locked screen, my username frozen at the top. I reached out, then stopped myself. There was no reason to touch it now. "Arya," someone said behind me. I turned. It was Mark from operations. We had worked together for years. He shifted his weight and lowered his voice. "I didn't know they were going to do that." "I know," I said. He nodded, relief flickering across his face like I had given him permission to stay silent. "If you need a reference, I'm fine," I said. And I meant it. even if I did not fully understand why yet. Across the room, two people pretended to be deep in conversation. Another stared at her screen like it might disappear if she looked away. No one met my eyes for long. It was easier that way. Linda from HR appeared near the aisle. Security is on their way. They won't need to be, I said. She hesitated. Company policy. I'm leaving, I said, lifting my mug. That was the policy. She stepped aside. As I slid my notebook into my bag, my phone vibrated in my pocket. A system alert, muted but familiar. A background process pinging for confirmation. My name was still attached to it. So were several others. No one else here could approve those requests. I had set it up that way. Back when speed mattered more than redundancy, and I was told not to overcomplicate things. Arya, Mark said again. Quieter this time. They'll figure it out. I gave him a small smile. Eventually, I walked toward the elevators. Coffee warm in my hand, my pulse finally slowing. I did not feel defiant. I felt steady. Whatever happened next would not be loud. It would not be dramatic. It would simply begin when I stopped holding everything together. I opened my personal laptop at the kitchen table and waited for it to boot, the way I always did. Patient and methodical. My phone buzzed again. I set it face down. The login screen appeared. Muscle memory carried my fingers. My credentials still worked. I exhaled slowly. Of course they didn't revoke it. I clicked through the admin panel, not rushing. Each confirmation loaded cleanly. Root access, deployment keys, authentication tokens, all of it traced back to one profile, mine. I scrolled through the access list and felt something settle in my chest. I had meant to transfer root months ago. I had asked for approval to set up a secondary admin, to document dependencies, to train someone as backup. We don't need to waste budget on redundancy. Ethan had said then, everything is running fine. Everything was running because I checked the documentation folder. Empty, except for a few outdated diagrams I had saved on my own time. The rest lived in my head. That had been the expectation. Be fast, be quiet, make it work. I picked up my phone and called Amanda, the attorney who had reviewed my contract when they converted me from contractor to employee. They fired me, I said. For what reason, she asked. Coffee, I said, effective immediately. There was a pause. Did they terminate you in writing? Yes. Then you no longer have any obligation to maintain access or availability, she said. Your contract covers work performed during employment, past tense. I'm still listed as the primary administrator. That is their oversight, Amanda said. Keeping access after termination creates risk for you. Revoking it is standard security practice. I closed my eyes. I'm not touching data. I'm not deleting anything. You don't need to, she said. You're simply stepping away. I ended the call and looked back at the screen. My name sat at the center of everything they depended on. Not because I wanted power, because they never bothered to take responsibility for it. I took a sip of coffee, set the mug down carefully, and moved my cursor to the access controls. I did not rush. I opened the access control panel and read through it one last time. The way I always did before making any change. My name appeared everywhere it mattered. Primary administrator. Final approval. Emergency override. I heard Amanda's voice in my head. Revoking access is standard security practice. I clicked into my profile. Confirm identity. The system prompted. I confirmed. First, I removed administrative privileges. The screen refreshed without protest. Then I revoked my own user credentials. The same way I would have done for anyone leaving the company. No exceptions. No shortcuts. My phone vibrated again. I ignored it. I disabled the authentication bridge that depended on my profile. Not deleted, not corrupted, simply inactive. The system logged each action automatically, time-stamped, orderly, 90 seconds. That was all it took. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen, waiting for something dramatic to happen. Nothing did. No alarms, no flashing warnings, just quiet. I logged out. The laptop fan softened, like it was relieved. I closed it and set it aside. Only then did I pick up my coffee again. It had cooled slightly, but it still tasted the same. At 5 minutes past 5, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Another call followed, then another. I watched the screen light up, then darken again. A text came through from Mark. Systems are acting strange. Did you hear anything? I typed back. I'm not there anymore. The phone rang again. This time, I recognized the extension. I did not answer. I sat there, coffee warming my hands, listening to the quiet stretch. Somewhere across the city, screens were freezing, requests were timing out. People were repeating the same commands, louder each time, as if volume could fix what access controlled. I took another sip and waited. I answered the call on the fourth ring. "Area," Ethan said, his voice bright in a way that felt rehearsed. "Hey, there you are." I did not respond. "So," he continued, forcing a laugh. "Funny thing. Earlier today got a little out of hand. Office culture, you know how it is. Someone took things too seriously. You fired me," I said, "yes." But he rushed the word. That was never meant to stick. It was a prank. A joke that went too far. I lifted my mug and took a slow sip. "You had human resources prepare paperwork." "Well, yes, that was part of the bit," he said. "We wanted to see how you'd react." I reacted by leaving. I said. There was a pause. I could hear voices behind him now. Low and tense. "Right," Ethan said. "And that's fine. Totally fine. But now that everyone's cooled down, we'd love for you to come back." Same role, no hard feelings. "I'm not interested," I said. His laugh came sharper this time. "Area? Let's be reasonable. We can adjust compensation." I didn't mention money. "Of course not," he said quickly. "But we can offer a raise, 20%, 30%. Whatever makes this easier." I set the mug down. "You called this a prank." "Yes, and now you're negotiating," I said. Another voice cut in behind him, muffled but urgent. Ethan turned away from the phone for a second, then came back quieter. "There's been a technical issue," he said. "Some systems are lagging, probably unrelated, but it would help if you logged in and took a look." "I can't," I said. "You can't." His voice tightened. "Why not? I don't work there," I said, "and I no longer have access." The silence stretched. When he spoke again, the friendliness was gone. "What did you do?" "Arya, I followed standard procedure," I said. After termination, his breath hitched. "You need to fix this." I picked up my coffee again. "No," I said, "I don't." The line stayed open, filled with breathing that no longer sounded confident at all. The next call came from an internal number I didn't recognize. "This is Dana from IT," a woman said, speaking fast. "We're locked out of several core services. The routing queues aren't updating, and authentication keeps failing. I don't work there anymore," I said. There was a sharp inhale. "Arya, please. We just need you to log in and tell us what you see." "I can't," I said. "I'm no longer employed." The line went dead. It rang again almost immediately. "Human resources," Linda said, her voice thinner than it had been that morning. "We may have moved too quickly. There's talk of revisiting your termination." "I don't work there anymore," I said. She hesitated. "Operations is reporting stalled orders. Trucks are waiting at docks. Clients are calling." "I understand," I said. "I still don't work there." Another call broke through before she could respond. "Arya. This is Paul from operations," a man said, skipping introductions. "We have 300 shipments frozen in the system. People on the floor are panicking." "I don't work there anymore," I said. "You can't just walk away," he snapped. "You're costing people their jobs." I closed my eyes. I was fired. Effective immediately. "That was a mistake," he said. "Everyone makes mistakes." "Not everyone," I said. "Puts them in writing." The phone buzzed again. A voicemail notification stacked on top of another, then a text. "We are prepared to offer consulting rates. $1,000 per hour. Please call." I set the phone down without replying. A few minutes later, it rang again. Ethan's number lit the screen, then disappeared. The silence between calls grew heavier, like the pause before something finally breaks. I took a sip of coffee and waited, letting the unanswered calls pile up. The call came from a private number. I answered it without speaking. "This is Daniel Caldwell," a man said. His voice was steady, practiced. "I'm calling to apologize." I waited. What happened today should not have happened. He continued. "I've reviewed the situation. I understand now that mistakes were made. Mistakes were documented." I said. "Yes," he said, "and they were unacceptable. I want to make this right." He did not rush. He sounded like someone choosing words carefully, aware they might be his last chance. "We would like to offer you a new position," Daniel said. "Chief Technology Officer, full authority over systems and hiring, a base salary of $200,000, equity, direct access to me." I set my mug down. "You fired me over coffee." There was a pause. "That was not my decision, but it was your company," I said. "We can correct the culture," he said. "That starts with giving you the authority you deserved." "Authority wasn't the problem," I said. "I already had responsibility. What I didn't have was respect." He exhaled slowly. "Arya, we value what you built. You valued it after it stopped working," I said. Silence filled the line. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. "What would it take for you to come back?" I thought of the conference room, of the paperwork prepared in advance, of being told who mattered and who did not. "It would take a company that listens before things break," I said. "One that treats infrastructure as an investment, not a convenience. One that does not turn people into lessons." "We can change," Daniel said, "not fast enough." I said. He did not argue. He did not threaten. He simply stayed quiet, as if absorbing the weight of the answer. "I understand," he said finally. "I am sorry it took this to see it." "I believe you," I said. "That doesn't change anything." The line went silent before it disconnected. I picked up my coffee again, steady in my hands. The company did not fall apart all at once. It thinned, quietly. Mark called me 3 days later. "They lost 2 clients this morning," he said, "not small ones." "I'm sorry," I said. "I don't think anyone else is," he replied. "They're blaming the systems. Then they're blaming each other." By the end of the week, recruiters stopped calling people from that office. Internal postings went unanswered. A role they had once filled in days stayed open for weeks. Linda from Human Resources emailed me from her personal address. "There's an internal review," she wrote. "They're auditing the termination process." I did not reply. Ethan Caldwell disappeared from the company directory without announcement. No farewell email, no title change. Just gone from meetings, gone from decisions. Someone told Mark he was still employed, technically, but no longer allowed to approve anything that mattered. Consultants arrived. Then more consultants. They asked for documentation that did not exist and access that no one could grant. Progress reports turned into revised timelines. Revised timelines turned into excuses. A month later, I met Julia, a director at another firm, over coffee. She did not ask why I left. She asked what I wanted to build. "We invest before things break," she said. "That's non-negotiable." I started the following Monday. Mark sent one last message a few weeks after that. "They're still trying to rebuild. It's slow, expensive." I read it, then set my phone aside. I did not feel triumphant. I felt clear. What happened was not revenge. It was gravity. A company that treated people as replaceable eventually learned which ones were not. I finished my coffee and went back to work. 3 months later, no one asked me to justify my presence. "Morning, Arya," Julia said as she passed my desk. Coffee already in hand. "The integration report you sent last night cleared legal. Clean work." "Thanks," I said. She paused. "We're approving the redundancy budget you flagged. Hire whoever you need." That was it. No debate, no warnings about cost. She walked on, trusting the answer she had already accepted. I was refilling my mug when I saw him. Ethan Caldwell stood near the elevator bank, badge clipped to his belt, waiting with a group from another firm. He looked thinner somehow, quieter. No one deferred to him. No one laughed at anything he said. He noticed me and hesitated. Then he stepped closer. "Arya," he said. His voice was careful now. "I heard you landed well." "I did," I said. "I wanted to say." He started, then stopped. "Things changed after you left." "I know," I said. He nodded, eyes dropping to the mug in my hand. "Coffee's good here, it's coffee," I said. "I drink what I want." He gave a short, humorless smile. "Right." The elevator arrived. He stepped inside without another word. The doors closed gently, like nothing had ever slammed at all. Later that afternoon, one of the junior engineers stopped by my desk. "Hey," she said, a little nervous. "I tried the deployment sequence you showed me. It worked." "Good," I said. "You did it right," she smiled. Relief bright and unguarded. "Thanks for taking the time." When the office quieted, I finished my coffee and rinsed the mug myself. No signs, no labels, no rules about who deserved what. Power, I had learned, was never about who could fire someone over a cup of coffee. It was about knowing who kept the company standing and choosing to treat them like they mattered.